everybody, welcome to week 4, the final week of our Into the Woods Sew Along. Can you believe that we are here already? I hope you have enjoyed this project. This week we're going to talk about putting all of these wonderful rows that you've worked on leading up to it together to build this finished beautiful quilt top. So let's dive right in. It's a really quick and easy assembly, but I figured I would just walk you through it since we have the chance. So I have all of my rows ready to go here, and you can see we start with the log cabin row, and then in between every section there is a small black sashing strip, and that is just an 1.5 inch black strip. It's actually that really cute kind of gray on black print that we've used as the background for our bear paws. That's the same fabric that we'll be using for the sashing. And so I have gone ahead and cut that fabric into 1.5 inch strips, and I've just sewn them all together. And so this is just one giant strip now. There's many different ways that you can do your sashing. You can measure your rows and go ahead and cut this down to the length that you need. I like to just keep it all in a big row and cut it as I go. So that's how we're going to do this today. I'm going to take my first row, which is our log cabin, and you just want to check the diagram or the picture on your pattern, because you'll see for the first row, the black side of our log cabins are going to be going up and to the left. So we want to make sure we're orienting it that way. And then we're going to take our sashing strip, let me find the end, and we're just going to lay it right sides together along the opposite side there. And we're going to sew this at the machine. So we'll start here. Now when you're doing sashing, a lot of people when they're attaching sashing or borders can get a little bit of waves. And the trick to avoid that, there's a couple things you can do. You want to put the bulk of your quilt down towards the feed dogs. You never want the sashing or the borders down there, because those feed dogs, by some miracle, just take in a little bit of extra fabric. And so if you have your smaller strip down there, that's what's going to give you some waves that we don't want. So we're going to make sure that our sashing strip is on the top, and we're going to line this up exactly with our edge. And just like always in quilting, we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam all the way down this side. And now you want to be really careful that you're not pulling or tugging on either of your strips. You're just lightly guiding them to keep them lined up, because when you tug, that's how you can also get waves. So I'm just sewing a little while, stopping to readjust my strip. I'm holding it really lightly back here. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on that. And we're just going to let the machine guide it through. And I'll just go a little while, line up again, until I see it starting to shift. And you really just want to take your time. If you find that you're pulling too hard, your machine is probably going a little too fast for you, and you'll want to slow down. If you have a speed control, you can do that. If you're pushing it through, your machine's probably going a little too slow and you want to speed it up. You've got to find that sweet spot. There we go. We're coming down towards the end of this row. And here's a tip. I actually do like to back stitch when I'm assembling my rows together, because we never know what's going to happen. You might have to pick this out when you attach borders. Something could go wrong that you need to fix, and if you've back stitched there, even if you have to do some seam ripping, these seams that you've made of your sashing rows aren't going to come apart, and it just helps protect it a little bit. So that's just something I like to do. And so now we can flip this over on our cutting mat. We're just going to lay this right along here, making sure that we're nice and square, keep my fabric and everything lined up, and then I'm just going to trim that off. even with my block. Now we can take this and we can press it nice and flat. I just roll that back. There we go. That looks nice. And so now we're going to attach our next row, which is our first row of trees. And the first one that's up starts and ends with a red tree, so that's how you know it's the one that you need. And so here's a little tip again. I like to keep the bulkiest part down on my machine. So I'm going to start by lining these up because I know that it's going to go to my sashing row, but I'm actually going to flip it when I put it into the machine. Does that make sense? So I'm going to have the trees down since there's more fabric on the trees than there are on these log cabins. So I'm going to be sewing from the other end with a 1/4 inch seam, keeping those smaller pieces up top. And we're just going to line up the end here. And when you're dealing with these long rows, you could absolutely put pins in there, whatever you need to do to manage the bulk. I don't find that I have any better luck when I pin my rows together, especially on something like this. Since I'm not lining anything up in particular, I can really just line it up as I go and zoom down. Again, just make sure you're not tugging on your fabric. And let the machine do the majority of the work. Okay. There we go. We have those attached, so we'll just press those as well. And I'm going to roll those back towards my black sashing. You don't have to be super particular at this point. You can always go back and make the seams go where you want them to go. I do like to just press as I go along because I find that it makes it easier to manage as I'm adding my rows. There we go. So now that we've added the trees, we're going to go ahead and add another one of those black sashing strips. So again, I'm going to put the bulk of my quilt down, and I can pick up that sashing strip, and we will just put it right sides together. And add that to the quilt. The most important thing when you're sewing your long rows together like this is to just keep the majority of the weight of the quilt in your lap or on the table next to you, because if it's pulling and hanging on the floor, that's going to add a lot of tension to the needle, and it can cause your seam to be wonky and your fabric to get wavy. So we'll just take our time, and you can see I just keep adjusting as I go. And just like before, we can go ahead and trim off the edge of our sashing strip. Line our ruler up along the edge of our quilt. Make sure our sashing strip is also running square. You can use the lines on your ruler to mark all of that, and then trim that off. And we can roll it back. I love that this quilt comes together in rows. It makes it go so fast on the final assembly. You've done most of your work week to week as you complete each of the blocks. And so it makes putting it together a cinch. All right, so then we're going to add our bear paws, which are the center of our quilt. This is really simple because it starts and ends with a red, so you really can't turn it the wrong way. We're just going to put it right sides together and sew it down. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then you're going to repeat these same steps that I've showed you to finish out the bottom half of the quilt as well. So I'll meet you back when I have all of that ready to go. All right, so our quilt top, all of our rows are put together, went together super easily, just with those 1.5-inch sashings in between our rows. And now let's talk a little bit about borders. We do have an 1.5 inch inner border, and so what you're going to want to do is attach the two sides and then your top and bottom, and I do that kind of the same way I did my sashing. I just make one long strip with my 1.5 inch inner border fabric, and I just attach it to one side, attach it to the other. If you are worried about this being particularly wonky, you can make sure that you measure the two sides and cut to the average so you can work to keep your quilt nice and square. But as long as you've taken the time and have been accurate on your seam allowances, you shouldn't have to worry about any of that. And there are no quilt police here. So we just do it the way that works best. And for me, I like to just make one big strip and sit and cut like I showed you. So that takes care of your inner border. Then for this outer border, we use this beautiful plaid. And I actually chose this print because even though it looks like it might be intimidating and you need to match things up, it has enough going on that it kind of tricks your eye, and you don't have to worry about lining it up. It looks beautiful. This is a 5-inch outer border. And again, you attach your sides first and then your top and bottom. It comes together really easily. I absolutely love it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this sew along. Just a few things before we wrap it up. This is the print that I used on the backing of my quilt. So you can see here, it's so fun. I absolutely love all of the words. And since it's a larger print, I thought it looked so great on the back. So this is available on our website. It doesn't come with the kit. So if you're interested in this coordinating print, be sure to grab that. We also have a thread bundle available. If you are interested in, machine quilting this yourself, you might like all those different colors. It just coordinates beautifully, and you can never get enough black, white, and gray thread. So it's a fun thing to add on. I hope you guys loved this quilt project. I loved creating it, and I loved sewing it along with you. I hope you try it out in different fabrics. I would love to see that. So I hope you enjoyed this Into the Woods sew along from the Missouri Star Quilt Company.